Happy Tuesday 2027. Welcome back to Literacy Time with Mr. Townsend. By now, I imagine this YouTube video has collected probably 35 million, 36 million views because it's so entertaining. Today, we're going to talk quickly about our PDN, and then we're going to go back into some review about impact of a new person today. So if you have not answered the questions on your PDN yet, please pause the video now. I'll cover it up so you can't see the answers. Now that you've answered the questions on your PDN, let's review them really quickly. These are all idioms. Not idiots, but idioms. Idioms are phrases or sentences that don't mean exactly what they sound like. For example, question number 1 says, when someone says you're as slow as molasses, what do they mean? If I were teaching and I were to say, my gosh, Cortavia, you're as slow as molasses, I would have to figure out what I was saying to Cortavia. Luckily for me, you know that Cortavia is not going to smell like syrup or be sticky like syrup because that wouldn't make any sense when I would say that in school. So the only two options I have are B, you move very slowly, or C, you're the opposite of slow. I wouldn't say someone is as slow as molasses if they're moving quickly. I would only say it if they're moving slowly, which makes B the correct answer. Molasses is a type of syrup, and if you've ever watched syrup moves very slowly. So I'm comparing that person to moving as slow as syrup. Question number 2 should be a little bit easier. She lives in a pigsty. What does that mean? That means choice A, she is very messy. A pigsty is the name of a pen where pigs would live. And typically, if you've seen a pigsty, they're not very messy. They're filled with mud and maybe straw, and they're not well taken care of by the pigs. So you would say that to someone if they were very messy. Question number 3, I gave you a sentence to kind of help you figure it out. It says, I'll buy you dinner when pigs fly. I don't know if you know this, but pigs don't typically fly, and it's not something that's going to happen sometime in the near future. So when pigs fly is never going to happen. So that would make choice C the best possible answer choice. It will never happen. Pigs will not grow wings. It's not a possibility that they'll fly, and it's not that they're going to fly someday. So that means that I'm never going to buy you dinner because I'll buy you dinner when pigs fly, and pigs are never going to fly. And the last question, question number 4, when someone says the walls have ears, what do they mean? This one's probably the trickiest. Walls obviously are not people. They cannot listen to you or hear you when you speak. So I can really take away B, the walls can hear you, and D, the walls listen to you. Now, choice C says the walls are sensitive to noise. They're walls, not people, so they can't really be sensitive to noise either. That leaves me with just choice A. It's saying that the walls aren't listening, but someone around us might be listening to what you're saying. They might be eavesdropping on your conversation, and you should probably tone it down and talk a little bit quieter. So you would say the walls have ears when you think someone's eavesdropping on the conversation, and you want to tell someone that someone else might be listening to what they're saying. Please go ahead and pause your video now and make sure you have these 4 answer choices in your PDN. If you have that, I'm going to move on to start the text. Now, yesterday when I read the text, the entire text was upside down on your computer screen. So I apologize for that. I'm going to try to fix that for today and make it a little bit easier so that everyone can see it. Hopefully at this point, the screen is now the right way up and down, and I'm not going to flip the camera just in case I mess that up. Or maybe I should flip the camera. Let's see. If I flip the camera this way, hopefully it stays right side up. Today, we are going to read a second text. Today's text is going to be about Susan B. Anthony. Now, a lot of you have already learned a little bit about Susan B. Anthony when it comes to fighting for the rights of women. So today we're going to learn a little bit more about Susan B. Anthony and her impact that she had on history. I'm going to start reading paragraph 1 out loud and show you what I chose to annotate, and then I'll give you a chance to read the rest on your own. Section 1, Leading Activist. Susan B. Anthony left her teaching job in 1849 to address some of the injustices that existed in the United States. In 1851, she attended an anti-slavery meeting. It was there that she met Elizabeth Cady Stanton. If you notice, I bolded Susan B. Anthony, 1849 in United States in sentence number 1. Then 1851 and Elizabeth Cady Stanton in the second sentence. I did that because 2 of them are names. 1 of them is the name of a country, and 2 of them are dates that are super important. Because this is only a 2-sentence paragraph, it would not make, or excuse me, a 3-sentence paragraph, it wouldn't make sense for me to underline too many sentences. So the only one that I thought was important was that Susan B. Anthony left her teaching job in 1849 to address some of the injustices that existed in the United States. That's the text telling me she left a job in teaching to fight injustices that she thought were going on. I'm not going to write a gist for paragraph 1. We're going to move on to paragraph 2, and then we're going to see what we have after that. She also spoke out against alcohol. Men who drank too much were a problem for women and children, she said. It is while doing this that she was inspired to fight for women's rights. At a meeting to talk about the problem of alcohol, she was not allowed to speak because she was a woman. She realized that no one would take women seriously unless they had the right to vote. Before long, Anthony and Stanton were not just fighting against drinking, they were also fighting for women's rights. I bolded the word she because it's talking about talking about Susan B. Anthony. I bolded the word alcohol and drinking because those 3 words went together and they came up 3 separate times. And then I bolded the word woman or women's rights because those are 3 words that came up multiple times. In terms of the sentences that I underlined at a meeting to talk about the problem of alcohol, she was not allowed to speak because she was a woman. I felt like that was a very important sentence of something that happened to her because she was a woman. And then I kept going when it said she realized that no one would take women seriously unless they had the right to vote. That tells me that this moment really inspired her to fight for the women's rights to vote. Then I go to my gist statement, and once again, I remind you I have to answer 3 questions. Who, what, and then where, when, or why. So Susan B. Anthony, my who, fought for women's rights because she wanted women to be taken seriously. So Susan B. Anthony is my who. What she did was she fought for women's rights, and why she did it was because she wanted women to be taken seriously. I could have said she fought for women to vote, but she also fought against other things besides voting, so I didn't want to just put the right to vote. Question number 1 says, Anthony was inspired to talk about the women's rights because, so I need to think about what inspired her. A, she spoke out against the consumption of alcohol and against slavery. She did do those 2 things, but that doesn't tell me that she was inspired to talk for women's rights. Choice B, she met Elizabeth Cady Stanton at an anti-slavery meeting. Maybe Elizabeth Cady Stanton inspired her, but it doesn't sound like that sentence gives me enough information, so I'm going to move on to sentence or choice C. She tried to speak out against alcohol, but was not allowed because she was a woman. That did happen to her, and it was one of the sentences that I underlined. She wanted women to have the right to vote. Choice D sounds like it could be a good answer choice, but I'm looking for what inspired her to talk about women's rights. Choice D just tells me what the goal was. The goal was to have women have the right to vote. Choice C, however, tells me that she tried to speak out against alcohol, but was not allowed because she was a woman. Up here, it says that she did that, and it also says right before that she was inspired to fight for women's rights. So I'm going to go ahead and bold this question, answer choice C right here, and that's going to be my answer. That's what inspired her. This idea that she was not allowed to speak because she was a woman made her realize that she needed to fight for women's rights. I'm going to go ahead and read the rest of the text out loud. If you don't want to read the rest of the text out loud with me, you can pause your video here, read the rest of the text, and then answer your exit ticket at the bottom, which is a CER response. If you would like me to read the rest of the text out loud for you, you can still listen to this video and I will read it out loud. If the text is upside down, because I'm an old man who does not know how to operate technology very well, you can just follow along while I read and not look at the video. I will try to fix it if it's upside down for tomorrow, and maybe you can help me in my office hours later how to figure out this problem. I'm going to start with where it says women's right to vote. I'll give you a second to find that header if you're going to listen along with me. Women's right to vote. Anthony and Stanton helped to create the American Equal Rights Association in 1866. They also created a weekly newspaper that lobbied for women's rights. The newspaper's motto was "Men, their rights, and nothing more. Women, their rights, and nothing less." Anthony gave speeches around the country telling crowds that women had a right to vote. She even did something daring. In 1872, she voted for president. At the time, it was against the law for a woman to vote. Anthony was arrested and fined $100, but she refused to pay it. In the early 1880s, Anthony published the first book about the history of the fight for women's rights. Several more books came after it. Please go ahead and pause the video now to annotate that paragraph and write your gist statement. Question 2. Which sentence best shows Anthony's determination for women's right to vote? A. Anthony published the first book about the history of the fight for women's rights. B. Anthony and Stanton helped create the American Equal Rights Association. Or C. In 1872, she voted for a president. At the time, it was against the law for women to vote. Please go ahead and answer that question now. And I'm going to move on to the section called Death and Legacy. Anthony never gave up on her fight for a woman's right to vote. In 1905, she met with President Theodore Roosevelt. She wanted him to change the U.S. Constitution to allow women to vote. She died the following year at her home in New York. The 19th Amendment to the Constitution was passed in 1920, 14 years after Anthony's death. It finally gave women equal voting rights. Her many years of hard work were honored by the U.S. Treasury in 1979. Susan B. Anthony became the first woman to have her picture put on a coin. Please go ahead and pause the video now, annotate those paragraphs, and write your gist statement while I read the following questions. What is the opinion of Susan B. Anthony in the article? A. Quakers have very harsh laws. B. Women should be allowed to vote. C. Alcohol should be allowed. D. Slavery will never end. Question 4. What is the author's opinion about Susan B. Anthony's fight for equal rights? A. Susan B. Anthony's most important fight was her fight against men drinking alcohol. B. Susan B. Anthony was careless in the way she fought for women's rights because she was arrested. C. Susan B. Anthony's hard work and determination helped women gain the right to vote after she died. And D. Susan B. Anthony became famous for her important work fighting to end slavery. And last but not least, our exit ticket. 2 questions for CER responses. Question 5, why was it important that women get the right to vote? And question 6, what is the impact that Susan B. Anthony had on history? Both of them should be full CER responses, graded as your exit ticket, submitted to me so I can make sure I take a look at it and double check your work. Thanks once again, guys, for checking in. I hope you're having a great day. Get outside, walk around, stretch your legs, clear your brain, and make sure you finish these assignments so when we get back, we can hit the ground running and learn as much as we can for 6th grade. Miss you all, and have a good day. Bye.